Captain Jake Morrison stepped into the large meeting hall aboard the space station. His black uniform was crisp and spotless, the golden stripes on his shoulders marking his high rank. Behind him walked Dr. Lisa Chen, a slim computer tablet held firmly in her hands. The room was vast and circular, filled with strange and fascinating creatures from across the galaxy. Some resembled giant insects, others were glowing crystal beings, and a few looked like walking plants with numerous arms. The air carried an odd mix of smells, a result of so many alien species breathing different TMOs, PHERES. Jake had stood in this chamber before. It was the heart of the Galactic Council, where alien races gathered to discuss vital matters, trade agreements, space travel regulations, and interplanetary disputes. Humanity had only been part of this council for a decade, and many alien delegates still saw them as newcomers, like children taking their first steps into the stars. Jake stopped in the center of the room, placed his hands behind his back, and stood tall. When he spoke, his voice rang out clearly. "We thank you for accepting humanity into your council," he began. "We're eager to trade, to share knowledge, and to learn from your advanced science and technology. But there is something vital we must say something about who we are." A tall, crystalline being named Veeler made a sound like shattering glass, a laugh by the standards of his race. He was the speaker for the Zephyrians, a species that had traveled the stars for millennia. "All new species come with strange customs," Veeler said, his words tinkling like wind chimes. "What unusual human practice do you wish to explain?" Jake's expression turned cold and firm. His voice dropped slightly, but his words carried weight. "Our children mean everything to us. If any alien race harms a human child, all of humanity will rise against you. This is not up for debate. It is a promise." The room erupted in sound. The insect-like aliens clicked their mandibles. The crystal beings chimed and flashed with color. The plant creatures rustled their limbs, while others emitted mechanical beeps. Confusion and surprise rippled through the chamber. Some aliens exchanged skeptical looks, thinking Jake was being melodramatic. They had heard threats from young civilizations before, usually empty words, when real conflict began. Dr. Lisa Chen stepped forward, holding up her tablet. "We share this information not out of hostility," she said, "but because we wish to build peaceful, lasting relationships with all of you." She tapped her screen, and a glowing image appeared above the man-evolving timeline of human warriors, ancient fighters with swords, soldiers from recent history with guns, and futuristic marines in powered armor. "Humans possess a deep-seated instinct," she continued. "It's part of our biology, an overwhelming protective response when our children are threatened. We're telling you this because we care about avoiding future conflict." A tall mantis-like being stood up. This was the representative of the Corvain, a race famed for their intelligence and business skills. The creature's voice buzzed as it spoke. "Your emotions are your own issue, humans," it said. "The galaxy runs on logic and profit. Decisions are not made based on feelings." Several other aliens nodded or made sounds of agreement. To them, humanity's emotional warning sounded weak, soft-hearted sentiment in a galaxy that valued strength, strategy, and power. Jake slowly scanned the room, noticing the amused faces and dismissive gestures. Some crystal beings continued. "Two flash colors and quiet laughter. You think caring about our families makes us weak?" Jake asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. "You think humans are soft because we choose peace?" He took a step forward. "Let me be clear. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We are very good at it. We choose peace not because we are weak, but because peace is better. But when you threaten our children, ... He paused. "That's when humanity stops choosing peace." Dr. Chen tapped her tablet again. "Throughout our history," she said, "nothing has provoked a fiercer response from humans than a threat. To our young parents, we'll fight to the death. Soldiers become unstoppable. Nations have gone to war, not for gold or land, but because a child was harmed. The room grew quieter. The weight of their words began to settle in. A slug-like creature, with glossy purple skin, raised its voice. It came from the Molus Confederation. "Are you threatening us, humans?" it asked. "It sounds like you're saying you'll attack if we don't follow your rules." Jake shook his head calmly. "We're not making threats," he said. "We're giving you information. When you trade with humans, you will encounter our families. Human children will be present in our ships, on our planets. We want you to understand that these children are protected by every human, everywhere." He paused before continuing. "We're telling you this now, so there are no misunderstandings later." The room fell silent again. Some of the delegates were beginning to reconsider, sensing that maybe the humans meant what they said, but many others still dismissed it as bravado and other young species trying to sound intimidating. Velar. The crystal delegate spoke again. His body shimmered with vivid colors. "Humans," he said, his tone half amused. "You've been in space for less than 50 of your years. Some of us have traveled the stars for over 10,000. We've seen dozens of species rise and fall. The young ones always make loud declarations about how dangerous they are. Most turn out to be nothing special." Jake smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that warned of storms to come. "You may be right, Velar," he said. "Maybe humans aren't as dangerous as some other races, but if you ever find out what we're truly capable of, it will be because someone made the mistake of harming one of our children." Dr. Chen calmly powered off her tablet. She looked around the chamber, scanning the many alien faces. "We've already shared this data with your medical and military departments," she said. "They now have access to our research on human protective instincts. We hope this helps avoid unfortunate incidents." Jake turned and began walking out of the room. Then he paused and looked back. "We want to be your allies," he said. "We want to explore the galaxy together, to trade, to learn, to build something better. But remember what we told you today." His voice was like steel. "Remember it well." The two humans exited the chamber. Behind them, the room erupted with noise. Delegates began speaking in dozens of languages, some worried, others mocking. The bug-like Corvin made clicking sounds as they joked about human sentimentality. The crystal creatures flashed laughter through light. Still, a few sat in silence, processing the gravity of what had just been said. Velar turned to the Corvain representative. "Do you think they were serious about this child protection idea?" The Corvain delegate clicked his mandibles. "All young races believe they are warriors. Give the humans a few more years. They'll figure out that logic and profit matter more than family feelings." What neither alien realized was that their conversation was being recorded by discrete, human listening devices. Within hours, the audio would be transmitted to Earth. Military leaders would listen to every word, and they would begin drafting plans, not because they wanted war, but because they could not afford to ignore the possibility. Jake and Dr. Chen walked down the corridor toward their ship. Other members of their crew were already waiting. "How did it go?" asked Carol Wright, the ship's pilot, as they approached. She was a sharp-eyed woman with short black hair. Jake shrugged. "Some listened. Most think we're just making noise because we're new to space politics." Dr. Chen looked worried. "What if one of them decides to test us? What if they think we're bluffing?" Jake stopped walking. He turned to face her and Carol, his eyes steady. "Then they'll learn," he said quietly, "that humans never bluff about protecting their children." He looked toward the docking bay, "and the galaxy will learn why. Earth spent so many years building weapons we prayed we'd never have to use." The three humans resumed walking toward their ship, unaware that their warning would soon be put to the test, far across the stars, in the remote Kepler system. Captain Amy Rodriguez was sipping her morning coffee on the bridge of the mining ship CSS Liberty when an alarm began to beep. She set her mug down and stared at the main screen, brows furrowed. This system was far off the main space lanes. They weren't supposed to have company. "What do we have, Pete?" she asked. Pete Johnson, the young red-haired navigator, was already checking his controls. Pete Johnson, the young navigator with red hair and freckles, had been working on mining ships for 5 years. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "Unknown vessel detected, Captain. 2 million kilometers out," he said. "Their engines are offline and the hull shows signs of heavy damage. They look like they're in serious trouble." Captain Amy Rodriguez stood up from her chair and stepped closer to the screen. The ship in question was large, black, and angular, its design sharp and menacing, even in its crippled state. "Can you identify the class?" she asked. Chief Engineer Tony Walsh glanced up from his station. He was an older man with gray hair and oil-stained sleeves. "That's a Skarn raider, Captain. Bad news. Those bastards are pirates and slavers. They hit ships hard, steal cargo, and don't leave survivors." Amy frowned. The Skarn were infamous throughout the galaxy for their brutality. Still, she knew humanity had firm laws about aiding others in distress. Even enemies had the right to rescue if their lives were in danger. "Any life signs?" she asked. Maria Santos, the comms officer with sharp eyes and a neat ponytail, studied her scans carefully. "Yes, Captain. I'm picking up about 30 Skarn on board. Their life support systems are failing. If we don't help them soon, they'll die." Amy nodded slowly. Then she gave the order. "Prepare a rescue team. Get the medbay ready for alien patients. I know what the Skarn are, but we don't let people die in space, no matter who they are." Tony looked uneasy. "Captain, are you sure? Skarn ships have faked distress calls before. Lure you in, then board, and take everything." "I understand the risk, Tony," she said firmly. "But if we stand by and do nothing while they die, we're no better than they are." The CSS Liberty moved cautiously toward the damaged vessel. Inside, Amy's crew prepared for the mission. Dr. Susan Miller loaded medical supplies calibrated for alien physiology, while Security Chief Robert King ensured his team was armed and ready just in case. But, as they closed the distance, Pete spotted something strange. "Captain, that ship's engines just powered up. Weapon systems too." Amy's eyes widened. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." But it was too late. The rescue team was already at the airlock when the trap was sprung. The Skarn had been waiting for this exact moment. The boarding party was led by a massive Skarn warrior named Grothic, known simply as Great H. His gray skin was marked with deep scars, and 4 red eyes glowed menacingly. Behind him stormed 20 more Skarn soldiers, armed with energy rifles and entanglement nets. "Surprise, humans," Great H growled, his voice like grinding metal. "We knew your soft hearts would bring you close. Now, your ship belongs to us." The human security team fought back, but they were caught off guard and quickly overwhelmed. The Skarn swarmed through the ship, taking prisoners and searching the cargo holds. But it wasn't or equipment they were after. Great H grabbed Amy by the throat and pulled her close. "Where are the breeding pairs?" he demanded. "Intelligence says your mining ships carry families. We know there are young ones on board." Amy's blood ran cold. The Skarn had guessed right. Mining ships like the Liberty often stayed out for months, so workers were allowed to bring their spouses and children. "There are no children here," Amy said firmly. "This is a work ship. Only adults." Great H narrowed his eyes and gestured, with a clawed hand. 2 Skarn soldiers dragged a small girl into the room. She was about 8, with blonde hair and tear-filled blue eyes. "We found 6 young humans in the family quarters," one soldier reported. Ages range from 4 to 12. Amy felt fury boiling inside her. These monsters had their hands on children. "What do you want with them?" she shouted. "They're just kids." Great H bared his rows of jagged teeth in a cruel smile. "Human. Children have unique brain structures. Buyers in the Outer Rim pay well for fresh neural tissue. Their minds will be harvested, sold for research." "You sick bastards," Amy spat, struggling against the soldiers, restraining her. "You can't do this. The Galactic Council forbids slavery. The Council does not patrol the outer systems," Great H replied coldly. "And dead children don't file complaints." Meanwhile, Maria Santos lay on the floor near her station, pretending to be unconscious. When the Skarn weren't looking, she reached up and activated the emergency transmitter. Her voice trembled, but stayed strong. "Mayday, Mayday. This is CSS Liberty in the Kepler system. We are under attack by Skarn raiders. Civilians are aboard, including 6 children, ages 4 to 12. The ship has been captured, requesting immediate assistance. Coordinates are the transmission." Cut off mid-sentence, as a Skarn soldier noticed what she was doing and slammed her with the butt of his rifle. She collapsed, but the signal had already been sent. It traveled at light speed, bouncing through relays until it reached Earth, at Earth Stellar Command. Admiral Jack Phillips was reviewing routine patrol reports when the message came in. A tall, broad-shouldered man with silver hair and eyes like frozen steel. He had served for over 30 years. He'd heard 1,000 distress calls. But the moment he heard the word children, his entire posture changed. Admiral Phillips stood slowly. His aide, Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Brooks, had never seen that expression on his face before. "Colonel," he said, his voice sharp and dangerous. "Activate Red Genesis protocol." Sandra froze. "Sir, are you sure? Red Genesis authorizes the use of all experimental weapons and black budget fleets. The Alien Council doesn't even know we have those assets." Phillips turned to the window, staring into the endless dark. "Somewhere out there, monsters are planning to cut open human children for profit," he said. 3 months ago, Captain Morrison warned the Galactic Council exactly what would happen if anyone harmed our young. He turned back, his eyes burning with controlled fury. They didn't listen. Sandra's hands flew over the console. "Deploying Red Genesis assets," she said. "All human military ships within 50 light of the Kepler system are being mobilized. I'm activating the Ghost Fleet and bringing deep space monitoring networks online. We'll locate every Skarn ship in known space within 6 hours. Phillips nodded, double quotes, "Good. We're done talking. It's time the galaxy learns what humanity really means when we say, 'Don't touch our children.'" "Secrets we've kept hidden for decades," Sandra Brooks said quietly. "Once we act, the other races will know we've been developing advanced weapons without the Council's approval." Admiral Phillips smiled, but it was not a smile of reassurance. It was the cold smile of a predator who had just locked eyes with prey. "Good," he said. "Let them know. Let the whole galaxy understand what happens when someone is foolish enough to take our children." The orders went out. Across human space, alarms sounded in hidden military installations, buried under moons and planets. Weapons never used in live combat were pulled from vaults and mounted onto warships. Soldiers who had trained in the shadows 4 years finally received their first real mission. The Skarn had made the greatest mistake in their species' history. They had given humanity a reason. Now, the galaxy was about to witness what humans were truly capable of when their children were threatened. And they would learn humans don't make empty threats when it comes to protecting family. Admiral Rachel Kim stood at the command console of the HSS Vengeance, watching the stars streak by as the ship traveled faster than any vessel had a right to. The Vengeance was humanity's most advanced warship, painted in matte black and coated with sensor-distorting tech that rendered it invisible to nearly all detection. Around her, 46 other military ships flew in formation, a full strike armada converging on the Kepler system. They had arrived within 18 hours of the distress signal. No alien race had ever seen humans mobilize with such speed or with such fury. "Status report," Kim said calmly. Commander Greg Foster, her tactical officer, straightened, a sharp-eyed man with dark skin and a mind honed on alien battle strategies. He had spent years preparing for a moment like this. "All ships report, combat ready, Admiral. The Ghost Fleet is in position around the Kepler system. We've deployed deep space sensors and a 50-light-year radius. No Skarn ship will move without us knowing." Admiral Kim nodded. She was small, precise, with short black hair and eyes that had seen war and now promised it. She had commanded fleets before, but never with the stakes so personal, so visceral. "What about the Liberty?" she asked. Chief Science Officer Kevin Ross, tall with fiery red hair, looked up from his station. "We found debris from the CSS Liberty. Admiral hull fragments, reactor plating. It was hit hard. Survivors were taken and moved into hyperspace. Based on the engine trails and gravitational echoes, we tracked them to the Draco sector." A quiet murmur moved through the bridge. Intelligence specialist Lucy Turner stepped forward. Young and blonde, her appearance belied the brilliance and precision of her mind. She had studied Skarn behavior for months. This moment was what she'd been preparing for. "The Draco sector is 3 star systems from our current position. It's heavily fortified Skarn military bases, defense satellites, and planetary shields." She took a breath before continuing. "They have a research facility on Draco Prime's 4th planet. That's the most likely destination for the prisoners." Admiral Kim clenched her jaw. Her voice, when she spoke, was tight with anger. "What kind of facility?" Lucy's expression darkened. Her face went pale. "According to our intel, it's a biological research lab. They specialize in alien anatomy, live experimentation, dissection, mind mapping. They use subjects while they're still conscious." The bridge went silent. A slow, controlled fury began to build in Admiral Kim's chest. "Then, we're going to that facility," she said, "and we're burning it to the ground." The Skarn fleet received a transmission calm, unwavering, and impossible to ignore. "Skarn fleet, this is Admiral Paul Garcia of the United Human Defense Command." The message played across every frequency, broadcast so that every commander and crew member heard it in full. "You took our children. You were warned. You chose to ignore that warning. What you are witnessing now is not war. This is judgment." On the bridge of his massive warship, Commander Fina stared in disbelief as ship after ship around him fell silent. Engines dead, weapons unresponsive, control systems offline. His once mighty fleet 3,000 strong was being dismantled without a single shot fired. "They've disabled nearly half the fleet," his science officer whispered. "No explosions, no casualties, just ... silence." Hefner's jaw clenched. "Get me communications. I want every working ship to fire everything we have at those human vessels." But it was too late. The Vengeance and its sister ships had already begun Phase 2. Across the fleet, human ships fired new class energy weapons that bypassed shielding entirely. They didn't destroy, they dismantled. One moment a Skarn ship was whole, the next it was peeling apart. Systems dissolving in silence. Back on Earth, entire nations watched the footage, not in celebration but in silence. Even among humanity, there was awe and a little fear. This was not just a military response. This was a message carved into the history of the stars. The Skarn capital planet, Draco Prime, had prepared for an invasion. Shield, arrays, orbital platforms, planetary cannons all set for traditional war. But humanity didn't play by the Galaxy's rules anymore. From high orbit, Admiral Kim gave the order, initiate planetary disabling sequence. Dr. Helen Baker, stood at her console, hands steady, activating graviton weave. Invisible threads of quantum energy wrapped around Draco Prime's atmosphere. Every electronic device on the planet, military or civilian, died in an instant. The planetary defense grid collapsed without a shot. Fighters fell from the sky like stones. Cannons failed to charge. Then, the loudspeakers engaged. The voice of Admiral Kim echoed across the Skarn capital. "This is your only warning. Surrender. Every individual involved in the capture and harm of our children. You have 24 hours. If you do not comply, we will return. And next time, we will not disable your ships, we will erase them." Back in the command center, Colonel Steve Patterson surveyed the quiet battlefield. "They never had a chance," he said, almost softly. Lieutenant Bell looked up from her display. "Sir, we're receiving a reply from the Skarn High Command. Put it through." The Skarn message came in. It was no longer arrogant. No more threats. No defiance. "We surrender. We will turn over all involved. Please, stop." Patterson nodded once. "Inform Admiral Kim. Then contact the Galactic Council. Tell them humanity kept its promise." And so, the galaxy changed. The 72-hour war became legend, not for its brutality, but for its restraint. Not a single Skarn city was destroyed. No planets burned. But the most powerful fleet in that part of the galaxy had been neutralized flawlessly, surgically, completely. The alien races, who once laughed at Earth's passion and sentimentality, no longer mocked. They remembered Captain Jake Morrison's warning. They remembered what humanity had said about its children, and they knew now, without any doubt, that humans never bluff. A voice crackled over the radiocom, steady and unmistakably human. "Your ships are disabled, but your crews are unharmed. Surrender now, and no one else needs to die." Fleet Commander Effner's face twisted in fury. His proud armada, once the most feared in this part of the galaxy, had been dismantled without landing a single effective strike. "Never," he roared. "We will fight with our bare hands if we must." There was a pause. "As you wish," Admiral Garcia replied. The human ships opened fire, but not with the intent to destroy. Instead, they used precision energy beams that sliced through the hulls of Skarn warships like surgical blades. Then came the human soldiers. Encased in powered armor, they flew through space like living missiles. They moved with terrifying speed, their weapons tuned to stun or kill with flawless accuracy. In less than an hour, every Skarn ship in the system had been captured. The once dominant fleet now floated, silent and under human control. But humanity was not finished. Captain Julie Martinez stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, her face cold and unyielding. A communications officer turned to her. "Ma'am, Skarn leaders are attempting to evacuate their government officials from the capital." "Captain." Martinez didn't hesitate. "Not today. All ships, begin precision bombardment. Military targets, only no civilian structures. Make it surgical." The Retribution and its sister ships unleashed weapons that had never been used in open combat. Energy beams bored deep into hardened bunkers. Missile strikes obliterated weapons factories buried kilometers underground. Military headquarters were reduced to dust with pinpoint accuracy. Hospitals remained untouched. Schools, homes, and marketplaces were spared. But the Skarn command centers, especially those linked to the atrocities committed against human children, were annihilated. Similar strikes happened across the Skarn Empire. Human fleets appeared out of nowhere, hit with devastating speed and precision, and vanished before the Skarn could mount a defense. They were fighting ghosts. The Skarn military attempted to regroup, but they were too slow, too exposed, and too outdated. Every counterattack failed. Every defense was bypassed on the second day. The remaining Skarn admirals convened in a secret war room. "We must ask for terms," said Admiral Sector, the highest-ranking officer still alive. These humans have weapons and tactics beyond anything we've faced. We are being dismantled. We are the Skarn, General Vexer shouted. We do not surrender to lesser species. Sector gestured to the chaos outside their capital's shattered windows. Half our fleet is gone. Our capital is in ruins. Our empire is no longer an empire, it's rubble. These humans are not lesser. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their debate raged while human soldiers continued their campaign, unrelenting, unstoppable. By the end of the third day, the Skarn Empire was finished. Its fleet lay scattered. Its military command lay in ruins. Its factories were reduced to ash. In desperation, the surviving Skarn leadership sent a final message to the human fleet. We surrender. Please. No more death. We surrender completely. On board his flagship, Admiral Garcia stood silently as the message played. His bridge crew watched him, waiting. He nodded once. Send our reply. The words were simple, firm. Surrender is accepted, but every Skarn responsible for harming human children will face justice. They will be tried for war crimes. There will be no hiding from this. The message echoed across the stars. The war was over, and the galaxy would never forget what had happened. But the galaxy would never be the same again. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was the largest in recorded history. Representatives from every known species had come to the high orbital station above Atheon Prime. They demanded answers about what had happened, how it had happened so fast, and what it meant for the future of galactic order. Ambassador Ellen Wright entered the chamber with a calm confidence she hadn't felt 3 months ago. She was flanked by General Mike Thompson, the imposing representative of Earth's military command. The last time humans had walked into this room, they were ignored, dismissed as a young, idealistic species unworthy of serious attention. Now, every eye was on them. Gone were the smug expressions and condescending smirks. In their place were fear, curiosity, and a deep, quiet respect. Veeler, the crystalline ambassador who had once mocked Captain Morrison's warnings, now sat dim and silent. The Corvain representative, whose kind boasted for arms, trembled slightly as he gripped his datapad. No one dared to interrupt as the humans took their seats. The council chairman, an ancient being whose gnarled bark-like body resembled a tree, sculpted by time itself, addressed the assembly. We have called this emergency session, the chairman intoned, to discuss the sudden and total destruction of the Skarn Empire. In 72 hours, one of the galaxy's dominant military powers was removed from existence. We must understand how and why. Ellen rose slowly. She scanned the room, her voice firm, yet calm. 3 months ago, Captain Morrison stood in this very chamber and offered a warning. Not a threat, not an ultimatum, a truth. She let the silence stretch. He told you what would happen if any species harmed human children. The Skarn chose not to listen. They abducted and experimented on 6 of our young. 2 of them died on a cold operating table, cut apart for the sake of curiosity. A low murmur of discomfort rippled through the room. A blue-skinned ambassador raised a tentacled arm. Ambassador Wright. The being said, no one knew your people possessed such technology. Your ships, your weapons, your coordination was ... beyond anything we imagined. Where did it all come from? General Thompson stepped forward. His face was lined with old scars. A testament to battles most of the council had never known. Humanity has spent decades preparing, not for conquest, but for defense. We hoped we'd never need to use our full strength. But we always knew. Someday, someone would test our resolve. We just didn't expect it to happen over children. The Corin delegate, whose race had long prided itself on diplomacy, rose on unsteady legs. What assurance, he asked nervously, do the rest of us have that humanity will not turn these weapons on peaceful species? that you will not now seek, dominance. Ellen gave a tired smile, one touched with sorrow. You had that assurance before. You simply didn't believe us. She took a breath. We are not empire builders. We are not conquerors. We are explorers, scientists, diplomats, traders. But we have lines that must never be crossed. You now understand what happens when they are. Dr. Caroline Swift, Earth's newly appointed chief galactic diplomat, stepped forward, young and sharp-minded. She had been chosen for this moment, the one where humanity would define its new place in the stars. She unrolled a digital scroll and addressed the council. Earth proposes a new galactic law, she announced. A universal accord that transcends politics and borders. She held the document high. Any species that deliberately harms the children of another, be they for research, slavery, warfare, or any cause, will face immediate collective punishment. No exceptions. Children are the future of every race. They are sacred. They must be protected. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed in a dozen languages, clicks, hums, musical notes, ultrasonic tones. Some delegates were nodding in solemn agreement. Others looked alarmed at the idea of universal enforcement. Concerns about sovereignty, independence, and unintended consequences filled the air. The tree-like chairman raised a branch for silence. This proposal would reshape the laws of interstellar conduct, he said gravely. It is not a small thing. Ellen stepped forward again. It is the only thing that matters, she said. The Scar were not the only danger to children. Pirates, traffickers, and black market researchers operate in shadows across your borders. This law isn't about control, it's about principle. It's about drawing one line the entire galaxy can agree on. Another silence followed, this time longer. Then, slowly, one by one, delegates began to nod. Among all our peoples, this law would protect the innocent across all civilizations. Velter's crystalline form shimmered with nervous energy. What if there are accidents? He asked. What if children are harmed unintentionally during war or natural disasters? General Thompson's voice was calm but resolute. We understand the difference between tragedy and cruelty. The Scar didn't make a mistake. They kidnapped our children. They experimented on their brains. That was not war, it was butchery. A slug-like ambassador from the Mollusk Confederation raised a quivering tendril. What about the Scar survivors? Their empire is gone, but millions of their people still live. What will happen to them? Ellen Wright stepped forward. They will not be harmed. We targeted only those responsible military leaders and government officials who ordered the abductions and experiments. Innocent Scar civilians have nothing to fear. We are not monsters. The council chamber grew quieter. Representatives from dozens of species began to share their own stories about the children of their kind and what they would do to protect them. The insectoid hive queens described entire civilizations built around the defense of their larval young. The crystalline races explained how their juvenile forms took centuries to mature and were considered sacred. Others told of ancient traditions, rituals, and laws all centered on protecting their most vulnerable. A shared truth emerged. Every species in the galaxy valued their children. The vote was held the next day. The proposal passed overwhelmingly. Only 3 species voted against it: pirate states and criminal factions who trafficked in misery and lived on the galaxy's margins. The rest, over 90% of galactic civilizations, agreed. There would now be one universal law: harm a child of any species, and you face the united wrath of all. Admiral Morrison, now promoted, stood once more before the Galactic Council. He looked older, wearier, but his voice was steady. We never wanted to be feared, he told them. We wanted to be friends, partners, explorers in a shared galaxy. But we needed you to understand that some lines cannot be crossed. You now No, when we said we would protect our children, we meant it. The human delegation turned to leave the chamber. Then, something unexpected happened. The insectoid queens clicked their mandibles in rhythmic applause. The crystalline beings joined in with soft, harmonic chimes. The sound grew species after species, rising in respect. Even some who had voted against the law stood up. Dr. Swift blinked in surprise. Why are they clapping? Ellen gave a small smile. Because we did what they all wish they could have done. We protected the innocent. And we made the galaxy a little safer for every family out there. Outside the chamber, alien military leaders approached Admiral Morrison. They no longer scoffed. They asked, "Admiral," said a commander from the Reptilian Federation, "we face pirate raids along our outer colonies. Would humanity consider assisting us protecting our young?" Morrison nodded. "If children are in danger, we'll help, always." In the months that followed, everything changed. Humanity was no longer seen as naive newcomers. They became known as guardians, respected, even admired, for their strength and their principles. Nations across the stars requested human military advisors. Others asked for defensive technology, training, or joint patrols in dangerous sectors. Treaties were signed. Old enemies reconsidered their aggression. The galaxy had felt humanity's wrath, but it had also seen their mercy. The CSS Liberty was rebuilt, stronger than before. Its new name was etched into its hull with quiet pride. CSS Emma and Ben Clark. It became the flagship of the newly formed Galactic Children's Defense Fleet, a coalition of species committed to the protection of the young. Everywhere its mission, to ensure that what happened in the Kepler system would never happen again. Humanity's newly formed Child Protection Fleet now patrolled the space lanes where families traveled, silent sentinels, guarding the vulnerable in the vast reaches of space. Captain Amy Rodriguez, a survivor of the Scar attack, was the first to volunteer for command. She had lived through the terror, and she had made a promise: never again. Standing on the bridge of the newly christened CSS, Emma and Ben Clark, she addressed her crew. "Every time I see this ship's name," she said, "I remember why we're here. We protect the innocent, we safeguard families, and we remind the galaxy that there are lines no one should ever cross." The galaxy had learned a powerful lesson. Humans were exactly as dangerous as they needed to be when it came to protecting what they loved most, and what they loved most was the future of their children. Among the stars, now just a little brighter, a quiet reassurance spread across the galaxy. Someone was watching over the young ones, who would one day inherit it.